rare. Arib is getting married on the 15th, and he's taking the time off here before his wedding to get ready for all the different events they're going to be doing. And so it's not very often that he's not around, but he is in his break now to get married. So we're excited about that. We're about 2 minutes from getting started, and we were trying to remember exactly when it was that Bob and Karen were with us. Mark, you can probably look that up, can't you? Just look on the site. It'll be right on there, on the post that we had for their session. I have, Bob and Karen, I have a really good friend and business partner who lives in Tucson, and he was part-time living there when we interviewed you guys the first time, but he wasn't there full-time. Now he is. And so we talk daily, and, you know, you guys had some little bit of wet weather over the weekend in the Tucson area, at least, but it's gotten cooler and nice, really nice out now. Same thing in your area, where in Tucson where he's at. He said the weather's gotten to be golf weather now.
Yeah, it's been a really hot summer here. By far the hottest summer that we've lived here. It
was in the triple digits for
3
weeks, 4 weeks at a time.
August was hot. It was every day, like right up around 100. So.
Well, we also had a very dry summer. I wouldn't say it was overly hot up here in Colorado, but it was consistently dry. We didn't have measurable moisture between March and late October or mid-October when we had a snowstorm. And you know what? Now that I think about it, we did set a record. You're right. We set a record for number of days above 90. So yeah, it just didn't seem as warm as you guys have it, at least. I'm still used to living in the desert, which is where I grew up. So it really never seems that warm here to me when it's over 90. So.
Well, it's been our driest year ever since we've been here. This is our 10th summer here, and by far the driest.
Yeah.
We only had about 10 inches for the whole year. Now, last year, 2019, it was the most rain we've ever had since we lived here. We had like 23 inches.
Wow.
Now, this year, it's the lowest. You know, we're not even half of what we had last year.
How much of that came in some literally, drenchers that you had, just really heavy rainfall?
Which the last year?
Last year, yeah. Of the 20.
Yeah, we had like 4 inches in one shot, there last year, and it was late. It was more the later rains, like the September, October, and even November, I think it was raining. But now we haven't had any really measurable rain since probably the 31st of August.
Okay.
No rain all September, October.
Mark, I've got the bottom of the hour, so why don't we go ahead and start recording? All right. Hey, everybody, you've been listening to us just chat here, and we're going to continue doing that. But this is Wayne Dorban and Mark and Bob and Karen, and we're excited to have them back with us. This is our second interview with them. Mark is actually looking up right now because neither of us remembered exactly when that first one was. We want to get the date because then it'll help them know what were some things they've done with their place since. And I don't remember if you actually even walked around, or we were actually even able to see through videos and or photos, images, different parts of your place. And I asked Mark to maybe find
set up the video that Derek Howlett did. I think we played part of that last time.
Yeah. So everybody, thanks for being here. A couple logistics things. We'd love to have interaction with you out there in the audience. So Mark's going to be keeping an eye on the little area where you checked in, and if you want to maybe even become unmuted to ask a question live to Bob and Karen, you can do that. If you want to put your questions or comments in the little chat box, the question box, you can do that. And if you're, Mark will be watching that. And because we're going to just make this an interview format, you guys can, Mark, you can interrupt us or after they finish answering some question that I've posed, and we'll get to those questions and comments from the audience. So just a little bit, Mark. Mark, did you find the date yet when we interviewed previously? Oh, where was I sitting, Mark? What office was I in? That'll help, because I've been in 3 different office locations since we started doing this 4.5 years ago. Okay. Well, that probably means that it was 2 years ago, guys, in that range, 2.5, something like that. It wouldn't have been more than that, because in the early first year and a half, I was at down in the town that I'm near, and it's a real different look there. So, all right. Well, we're excited to have you guys. This couple lives off the grid, and let's start there. Let's just say, how are you feeling about that? How are you liking that you're off the grid now, and how long has that been for in your lives now?
10 years.
Yeah, we bought the land right at the beginning of 2010, and we lived in the house. We built the house, and we moved into it in 2012 in June. So we've been here, 8 years plus
in the house.
And yeah, it's
it's a sense of security, because we have our own source of water, we have our own source of electricity, and when we have our rainy seasons, a lot of times all the power goes out for all our neighbors, and we never even know it. We're just life as usual. So it's pretty comforting.
So what would you guess, and you probably even know very specifically, your average monthly wattage or kilowatts usage is?
Boy, it's pretty hard to say. Let's see. It's possible that since we talked last time, we've upgraded our battery bank.
Okay.
We've gotten a new charge controller and a new inverter.
We did get new batteries.
Would you mind doing a little advertisement for all 3 of those entities? What brand, and tell us a little bit about each: the charge controller, the inverter, and the battery.
Well, I know I can't think of the brand name of that thing right off here.
But the batteries are.
The batteries aren't Trojan. They were from a batteries and bulbs place in Sierra Vista. We went from having a bank of 12 golf cart batteries with 3 strings of 24 volts, 3 strings of 4 together in parallel, and those lasted us like 5.5 years. And then now we went up to the L16s, the ones that are taller than the golf carts, and now we just have 8 of them, 2 strings of 4, and it's still more amp hours and stuff. So we've jumped up, I think, what do we got, about 6-7 kilowatts of batteries, and I think we had all 6 of our panels before.
Yeah,
when we talked to you.
Yeah, you had, if I'm recalling, 6, and are they all 1K panels or larger?
They're about let's see, some of them are 185 watts and a couple of them are 190 watts because we bought 4 at first and then bought 2 more later, but we couldn't find the same brand, so we had to just match them up as close as we could. So altogether we have like 1,120 watts of solar.
Watts. Okay, so 1.1 K. About
Yeah.
Um,
And then on the inverter, we went from a modified square wave, 1,500 watts, up to a 3,000 watt pure sine wave inverter,
okay.
and moved up in the charge controller to a from the old style to the what do they call it, the maximum power point, the more modern style of charge controller.
And that first set of batteries, were they just getting to the point where they weren't holding a charge because they essentially just lived their life? Is that right? Is that why you went to what you've got? Or?
Yeah, pretty much. It just got to the point where, like, we wake up in the morning and we'd turn on a few lights and do a few things, and then everything would just go down because they just went down too low. So we just went like that for a little while, and then we just bought a new set.
So what devices do you have running on electricity all the time? Your refrigerator, right?
Of course. Lights, the computer, ceiling fans. We have a washing machine, which I think we've added since we were on here last. We have one of those, your blender.
Yeah, Vitamix. So that takes quite a drain. And when we got the new inverter, you could really tell that it was choppy before, like it was getting, I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't a smooth.
I think that's to do with the pure sine wave versus the
and now it just
modified square wave.
Grinds away like a regular blender. It doesn't have that hesitation anymore. So that was a real big plus.
And your battery bank, if it's cloudy for how many days could your battery bank give you power before, if there wasn't any additional solar gain?
Well, it's very rare that we have a day where there's no sun at all. And even like partially sunny, we'll put some into it. But if we go more than like a couple days or so, then I usually will bring out the generator and run it a little bit, but that's not that often.
Okay.
On my first battery bank, I was real, I never wanted to use the generator. I let them go pretty far down, but I'm kind of babying this new bank we have a little bit. I'll throw the generator on to not let them get down too far. So I'm hoping they last closer to 10 years than 5.5. So.
And how many, of all those devices that you said, could you keep running? I mean, your refrigerator's on all the time. What other things would you avoid turning on because you knew that you'd already been drawing enough power from whatever else you already had on?
The blender for sure. That because we actually tested it when we got it. He went out and watched the control thing, and you can see it sucks quite a bit of energy, but you only use it for 2 or 3 minutes at a time. It's not something that you use for over an extended period of time. But if it's cloudy, or then we don't do wash on that day, or I just don't use the blender as much, or whatever. We're conscious of that, and you do have to kind of go with the sun, and it's not that big a deal. If we don't wash one day, we wash the next day. So it's just kind of using common sense.
And I know one thing we've noticed, especially this year when it's been so hot, the heat really drives down your performance on your on your charging and stuff. I mean, when it's like over 100,
And this humidity
It's-
also, you're not very humid very often at all, but I've heard more humid actually is better, that charge retains in a system better. But you don't have much humidity.
Yeah, I know when it's cooled down like it has now, like when it's, in the set, like today, I think it was in the 60s. Boy, it charges good. I mean, it's a nice, crisp, clear day. It'll,
Yeah.
we'll be putting 40 amps in there.
And then we can do laundry and run the blender and, do things extra and it charges back up, no problem. It's just being a little bit aware of, when it is a cloudy day or a really super hot day, we just don't do as much. We just wait.
Do you have any kind of air conditioning?
No, we don't. We've been going just on our ceiling fans, but this year,
It was
boy,
tough.
if it starts being hot like this, we're definitely thinking about maybe adding a swamp cooler, right? That evaporative cooler.
Yeah.
Which I have one of those.
Yeah, it was.
And they work really well. They can work well for you.
They work good here, with the low humidity.
Yeah, this was our most uncomfortable year so far in the summertime. It's never been this hot for such an extended period of time. And our walls are cob, so after it absorbs heat for days on end, then it doesn't really cool
It's
off
almost
at
like
night.
it kind of becomes a heat sink, sort of.
Yeah, so it was uncomfortable this year. I was glad to see the 100 degrees go away.
I'm turning my webcam on. I apologize because I'm in.
We're not the only ones here now.
Yeah. I had a little bit of a challenge. I'm doing this from the little town I live in rather than out at my ranch, because everybody that's a regular here knows that we have a limitation on the amount of internet use we can have on a monthly basis, and our system rolls over on the 15th. We used a ton of it over the last month, and I'm trying to preserve our internet at home so I can work in town, today. And these webinars take actually quite a bit of internet load. So your well pump, how much does it draw? So does it work with a pressure tank? So the pump only comes on and you're storing water in the pressure tank and so on?
Well, we have a big water tank about, I don't know what to leave. It's about 660 gallons, and it has the float switch in it. So when it gets down, the float switch kicks and the well, it fills up that tank. And then when it gets full, it shuts off. And then from there, it goes gravity feed over to the house. And then we have just like a little pressure pump at the house to pressurize.
But it's not one of it doesn't fill up, it just pushes it through.
No, it's just like a pump, like sort of like in an RV, except it's a 100, it's an AC pump instead of a DC.
And if I recall, you did some trenching or some land contouring around your place to make sure that during sort of a really heavy rain event, which we were talking before we started formally, last year you had a very wet year and you had at least one storm, you got 4 inches.
You're breaking up pretty badly.
Really? Huh. Is it better now? I'm moving
We're having a hard time hearing you.
How about now? Is it better now?
Much better. Much better.
Okay. I was just a little ways away from my phone there. I'll repeat that. You were doing some land contouring, I think, some trenches, different things to make sure that you didn't.
Yeah, we do that every year. We dig them out after it rains and the dirt is more pliable. It's just what do you call these things? They're
We just kind of, to keep the sheet flooding from coming up. But we didn't really need it this year. We didn't have enough rain to really.
We just
We
dig it
didn't have
out.
any good rain.
And tell us about any kind of either any kind of food production you do on the land yourself, either through a garden or Any kind of livestock, chickens, whatever?
We're still struggling away with our gardening. We haven't got the tomatoes or anything down very well. It's mostly stuff like spinach and kale and
arugula
and things like that.
We
And,
grew some beets this year, and we have a standing greenhouse that's about waist high, and then we have a third of our front porch is made into a greenhouse, and that works pretty well. But
get lettuce and things like that.
It's tough here. There's so many animals and mice and bugs and stuff. It's tough to really like live off of what you're growing. We don't know anybody around that can actually live off of what they're producing, but we always grow some stuff.
And how many of your neighbors live as much off the grid as you do?
There's several scattered around the valley. Our closest neighbors are all on the grid. We're the only ones off the grid. We're about a quarter mile, half mile from power, about a quarter mile.
Yeah.
And so the rest of everybody's hooked up to power. The Green Dream project that we were talking about, those friends of ours, they're out further in the valley, and they're more secluded than we are even. They're out further away from people. And then there's Derek and Hannah they're another 40 miles from us or something. So there are people off grid, but we're pretty scattered about. They're not like a colony or anything.
Yeah, a lot of people have been moving out to this area, it seems like, in the last few years. It seems like
we get a lot of questions about moving to this area and living off grid and stuff. A lot of people are interested, coming from other areas.
So give us your.
I think it's because of the opt-out thing where you can opt out of the vote.
Give us your kind of general address, and Mark can look it up and put a Google map up. He can put his screen up for a second. Everybody can see a little bit about where you're at.
6810.
68. So Mark, you getting this?
North. Pressgrove, Presgrove Lane, McNeil, McNeal, Arizona 85617. Yeah, and it's a pretty. We're probably 12 miles from Bisbee and maybe 15 miles from Douglas. We're out in an area called Double Adobe.
They're about a mile off the pavement.
Yeah.
And if you had to do, if you got a chance, if all of a sudden you just had a complete chance to do some things different than the way you've done them, what would be the first thing that comes to your mind that you do different?
Tell them about the windows.
Well, we wouldn't change anything about where we are. This is a great location.
Yeah.
Okay. So location's
The
fine.
house has worked out pretty good. We have corrected a few of my amateur builder problems, like from when I built my house. Now, it's kind of embarrassing for me to talk about this because this is
it sounds stupid now.
It does, because when we scavenged all our windows to build the house, and this guy had these used windows out in this barn. We got them all. But then when I put them in, we have a window in our bedroom and one in the kitchen. And we got windows that were 4 feet high by 2 feet wide, vertical windows. We said, we'll just use them sideways to make a 4 foot wide by 2 foot high. Well, that doesn't work very good. That's a very stupid thing to do. Because when it rains into the window, it goes into where the screen is and comes in the bottom slot, which should be the vertical slot, but it's the horizontal, and then it just comes on into the house. And
so every time we would have a big rainstorm, it was a fire drill because the walls are made out of just mud on the inside. So
when the water gets inside, it melts the walls.
Your walls are melting, so it was a fire drill.
So we finally did it this year, and we went and got some like real 4 feet wide by 2 foot high horizontal windows,
Oh.
and we swapped them out. I had to chisel them,
That
chisel
was-
the old ones out, which was kind of a project.
It was a project.
And so now we've got decent windows in.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest stupid thing I did on this house.
We just thought we were being so economical using all refurbished stuff.
Yeah, you can be too cheap
And
sometimes.
that was something that really cost us a lot of labor and time. And wow, what a deal to get him out of there. He had to chip them out, chisel them out, and Cob turns to like concrete.
But then once you put them back in, it's just mud.
Yeah,
You
then you-
get some mud and build it back up, and
Yeah, they look
they look good now.
they look fine and they work wonderfully. So it was well worth doing.
Is that
But
One
that was
behind-
definitely the number one.
You know, I think maybe if I would have thought it over too, I might have made my solar system maybe slightly bigger, more I may add some panels here, because if we go with the swamp cooler, we might need a little bit more.
right behind your head in the view? Is that one of the new windows? It looks like a window. There's light coming in behind you, or maybe that's just a white color.
It's a mirror. That's a
That's
mirror.
a mirror, but the mirror is probably more like, I don't know,
Oh,
refrigerator there. It's behind that.
I got it. So that's one thing you do different. The Cob, would you do a different kind of construction, or do you like what you've done with the Cob? And then tell everybody just a general description of how your walls are made. in the Cob.
The Cob worked out good because we have dirt here such that you don't have to add extra
Yeah.
sand or extra clay to it.
Yeah.
It's perfect just like it is. So we just got a washout behind the house, and we just got that dirt, and we did the foundation, of course, just like a rubble trench foundation, and then I built a stem wall with cinder blocks,
Okay.
and then on top of that we did the Cob, all the way around up to about 8 feet high, and then like we have just a one slope shed roof type of roof.
Mhm.
So we went up to 8 foot high to where it was up to the roof in the back, but then there's like triangles on the sides and then a spot in the front where the roof raises. Now that area was all filled in with light clay straw.
They call slip straw, I guess they call it.
Yeah, where you take the straw and you mix up a more watery mud and kind of like just,
It's almost like a slurry.
yeah,
with a lot of straw in it.
And like just wetting the straw basically with this mud and then putting it in forms temporarily until it sets up, and then moving on, and then we plastered over that and everything. And then what I should have said before is our back wall, our north wall, has no windows in it, and so that we just decided to make straw bale. So
Okay.
we got north wall that's straw bale. The rest of the walls up to 8 feet high are Cob. And then above that is
Slip straw.
the light clay straw.
Yeah. And probably, like, one of the reasons that we did the Cob was because we had the perfect soil for it. Maybe something even a step nicer would have been to have straw bale all the way around. It would have been a lot quicker and maybe a better insulator for cool and heat. But at the time, straw bales were very expensive. And so for us to have the free dirt that we have that was perfect, it just made more sense economically to do it out of the Cob instead of totally straw bale. That
And what's
was
the
a big reason?
square footage on your home? Approximately?
What's that?
600 square feet.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Square
20
footage.
by 30, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what did you do on the roof? Is there insulation in your roof?
Yeah. How I built it is actually, when I built the foundation and then the stem wall, then the next thing I built was the roof, which I put on a posts. I have 12 posts spaced out. And then I built the roof, and then we just built the walls up to it. And the roof is just, it's metal, it's the corrugated metal on top, and then inside there's insulation and, in between the
And then the
rafters.
styrofoam.
And then I put a layer of styrofoam, and then our wood, our paneling. You kind of see it in the back.
Yeah, you can see it behind you. It's probably, yeah. And then we talked a little bit communication before. Are you in a cell system there? So you have cell coverage, I assume. And what do you for internet? Is there a Wi-Fi system in the area, or do you have wired,
It's a system that works. We have a dish out there, and then it connects to a tower that's down over by, there's an airport over by Douglas.
It's line of
So,
sight.
yeah.
Yeah. They come out and they shoot a beam to the receiving station thing and fix the dish, it's a little dish about that big and up on.
It seems to work all right. I mean, we're not at the fastest speed that they offer, but we still, we can do this. So.
Yeah. Oh, your audio is coming out excellent. Your video is good. Mark, did you kind of find a map that you could throw up so people could see where in Arizona where they're at? I know the state a little bit, so I know where Bisbee is. I know where Douglas is. When he does that, he'll just show up below it. We'll keep going. So tell everybody a little bit about your history before making this move 10 years ago. And why did you make it? And that was right during the middle of our recession. For those that are younger, maybe don't even remember that. But were you retiring at that point? What was the life change that motivated your move? By the way, I apologize about this late.
We met in Mexico. Bob lived on his boat in Mexico, and I was living in Mexico, and we ended up sailing around for a couple of years on his boat, and then we actually bought a little place up in the mountains between Guadalajara and Puerto Vallarta and lived there and refurbished that house. And when we sold that house, we were coming back 6 months down there and 6 months up here to work, and then 6 months down in Mexico. And that got to be a little stressful. It was hard going back and forth all the time. And so when we sold the house, then we came up here and used the money that we sold our Mexico house with to purchase this land. And we came to Cochise County on the advice of some people that we had met in Taos, New Mexico. And the area that we live in allows you to opt out of the building codes. And that was very attractive to us. So that was the main reason we ended up in Cochise County.
And I think you showed us in the video we saw last time. Are there still lots available in the area? And
there's a lot of big land out here because a lot of it. So yeah, there's stuff available. The opt out is kind of in danger now, which is a shame. It's kind of, they bat it back and forth every year if they want to keep allowing people to do that. So a lot of people, we get a lot of inquiries from California and Michigan and all over the people wanting to move out to bare land. And so we really don't know how much longer the opt-out's going to last.
Explain that, Karen. Explain that.
Every year they bring it up and
explain what the opt-out means to people. They may not know what you're talking about there. I'm trying to get these shadows out of my face, but I can't find any direction I can go where that happens. Apologize.
Well, the opt-out is just the ability to forego any of your inspections. Like you're signing something that's saying that you are responsible for all that stuff, and you
do have to get an inspection like on your septic.
Yeah,
they do have the regulations on that, and then they just, for your building permit, they just check like that you're far enough away from the property lines and the washes and things
all the
like
setbacks,
and then just what your footprint of your house is, and then it's just go to it,
Yeah.
And I think you were worried about that opt-out ending even when we talked the first time. So it sounds like it's
engaged in it, once you've taken the first steps and you've gotten your opt-out permission,
Yeah.
then we were like, okay.
Yeah, and it wouldn't affect us if they
But
got
it's
rid of it, but
new
it would just
people.
affect new people coming.
Yeah, I didn't mean for you. I think
Um,
you were suspicioning that they might get rid of it fairly soon. That would affect others
We
moving in the
threat
area.
that every once in a while.
Yeah, just
It's just
So-
gotten more pronounced.
So if land value's gone up, if you were to buy your same lot today, has it appreciated?
Probably, I would say
would say
probably
probably.
some.
that was 10 years ago. So.
Yeah.
And a lot of it here is just, you know, if you go through the realtors and stuff, or if you just go around kind of like we didn't, just go around talking to people.
Yeah. There's a lot of empty
You know, you can
land.
get,
A lot of what makes land valuable here is where you can get water. And there are some areas that are really, really inexpensive, but unless you're going to do pure water catchment,
Yeah.
you can drill a 1,500-foot well or something, and that's really expensive. So that's kind of where the land value comes in. And there are certain areas that are
and also,
much more
yeah,
expensive.
and also access too, like with the washes here. I mean, yeah, it's the desert, but when it does rain, some of these washes, I mean, you can't,
you're
you can't
stuck.
get to your land.
Yeah.
or whatever.
You can't get in or out. You're you know, on whatever side of the wash you're on, that's where you stay till it goes away, till it subsides. So location and water, I would say, determine the value of the property more than anything else.
So I'm going to sound a little bit like a survivalist or a prepper here as I ask this next question. Do you think that because you're off grid and you've built everything to meet all your needs, that you might have more value in your land if you went to sell it now with the home and everything on it than somebody who's 2 miles from you, but they're on the grid? Do you think
I
because of
definitely
I
definitely think so. People are very, that's what they're looking for. We see them all the time on Facebook and people in the little groups, you know, that we talk to of other off-gridders, and so many young people, which is heartening. It's really nice to hear they're trying to be off-grid and do these things and not go into debt for a big home and things like that. They're willing to work a little harder to get that situation. So yeah, I think definitely if we were to put our house up for sale, I don't think it would take us 10 minutes to sell it. So that's just my opinion from what we've read online and people that video that you popped up of us. I think it's got something like 347,000 views. We were just blown away. We've had people from all over the world contact us.
that was a while ago.
And that's been 4
5
years.
years.
Well, yeah, 4 or 5 years. And we've had people from Africa, people from everywhere call, you know, write us and ask us questions and real interested in getting in on that kind of thing.
So people that are coming in, are, even though you're getting inquiries, are they coming from all over, even internationally? People that are moving in the area?
Let's see, I'm trying to think of, I know there was a couple people from Australia. There was a couple people from, I've kept a log of all the people that have written to us or emailed us. And I think there was about
A few people from Florida.
Yeah, Florida, Michigan, just a lot of different places. A lot of Californians that
Yeah, that's not
just
surprising.
couldn't afford California anymore. That's real common. You get a lot of California people inquiring about it, and a lot of younger people, which is really nice.
So how has the COVID virus affected you guys?
Yeah, well, it does when we go into town. What's nice is, you know, we're out here, we're way away from everything. So, I mean,
we're about as good set up for it as you could be, because we have a small circle of friends, and a lot of them live kind of like we do. They're not going to concerts or, football games or any of the, big gatherings. And we still, all through COVID, we've had a get together every Monday night, and people sit apart. We sit outside, and it's pretty casual. It's nobody we have known has gotten sick. We haven't gotten sick, and nobody in our circle of friends has had an immediate friend or relative be sick. So it's been pretty good. I mean, we follow the rules of the mask and stuff when you have to go into town and go into a store. We respect that, but
we're sort of more to the hermit end of the scale anyway, so we're not like, we were never big nightlife types before this anyways.
Yeah.
So let's assume that it was 3 years ago when we last talked, because I think it's in the range. What have you done new since then to either upgrade what you have, new outbuildings, new anything?
Well, we got a washing machine, and I I put it on a pallet and then built a little roof over it. It's right next to the solar shed, so I just built a little building coming off the solar shed. So that's the little washing machine place, and we got that, and then we, like I say, we switched the inverter and the charge controller, and we replaced our windows. We made the greenhouse on the porch here. Well, we probably replastered since then. We had a plaster originally with cement, Portland cement in it, which I don't know. Yeah, it kind of over time it kind of lifted away, so you could tap on it. It was like hollow, and then pieces would drop off. So we eventually just replastered the whole house using just lime and sand.
That's held up well.
And it's held up. That's been probably 3-4 years now. 5 years, I don't know.
Remember, we have a standing greenhouse outside, like I said, that's like waist high, and then we have a normal one that starts on the ground, but it's small. And I think we're going to expand that this year and make it a little bigger, because it seems to have more luck growing stuff than just outdoors. It's just so hard to keep the rodents and the birds and everything else off of it, that you kind of have to have an enclosure with at least some kind of netting or protection, because they're just everywhere. Yeah.
What, maybe if you look ahead 5 years, 10 years, whatever, do you have any specific things planned you're going to do in terms of, again, modifying the property or the house or whatever?
Just kind of keep maintaining what we got. We'll see if we need, I don't know.
No, nothing really. I mean, one of our goals when we built this was to have low maintenance and things that we could do ourselves. And Bob is pretty much the only one of us that gets up on a ladder. That's not my territory there. So like roof maintenance and stuff like that. So we've kind of purposely tried to keep things simple and not have a lot of outbuildings. He's got his man cave and his little addition to the man cave and stuff. And that's, he does all his projects out there and his art and different things like that. We have a small travel trailer, kind of a vintage little silver thing out in back. And like if we have guests, there's 2 people can sleep out there and that kind of thing. But to actually build something more, that really hasn't been too much on the radar as of yet. So we're kind of satisfied with what we got, and it's easy to maintain. And if we'd like to travel, we're hoping to be able to travel in October after Bob retires, and keeping this as simple as possible would make it more realistic for a house sitter to come in and stay. And making it too complicated, then it's too hard to get away from.
And Bob, what are you doing still that you're not retired? I thought you were retired. So
Well,
still-
I've been doing a handyman thing, which, I've taken a big hit this year. My work's way down, but I'm going to be 62 in June. So I'm going to get on my Social Security here.
well, you're a young guy. I'm 68. So, by the way, I feel so good. The sun finally went behind a cloud. Man, it was just in my face. What would you have to do if, let's say, you went off on a trip for a month or two? Would you need a house sitter there, or could you sort of, close things down and not have to worry about it so much?
Well, it would be nice to have somebody here, just because it's secluded enough that we can lock our property down and stuff, but it's better if somebody's here. I'd feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and I could probably shut the well off and leave the batteries just floating or whatever.
Since you just mentioned it, do you worry about security at all from people potentially coming and robbing you or whatever?
8 miles from the border, and we've never had any incident of illegal traffic or anybody, but we do have a lot of problem with Border Patrol. They seem to feel like they can pretty much go wherever they want, and we've had them come at 11 o'clock at night right outside our door, and they're not as polite, as I think would be a nice way to put it, as I would prefer they be. Like, when they're going to come on your property and be looking for something, I think they should come and notify you, and they don't. They just drive in and drive around your property, and it's frustrating. We had an incident about 2 weeks ago where they drove through our property and they came in our driveway and drove around behind the house and drove back out, and
we woke up, we were sleeping.
It was 3:30 in the morning, and they were driving without headlights, which,
Wow.
I hate to say this, but there's a lot of very young boys with big toys. That's kind of how I look at the Border Patrol. They've got the great big four-wheelers and the big pickups, and they like to run through the mud. And if your property just happens to be where they want to go, they just go there. And that's not too appreciated by anybody around here. They're not as courteous as they could be.
Are the young people that have moved, Are the young people that have moved into the area mainly working online types of jobs, which will allow them to be where they want to be?
It seems that the younger people that we know are, the Green Dream Project, and
he's getting his YouTube thing going.
He's got a YouTube channel, and they're doing that very regularly. They've made a big cistern out of earth bags, and they've made a root cellar, and now they're working on their house, and they've videoed all of it. And then Derek and Hannah, the Handyman channel, they're both online people, and that's how they make their income. So those are about the only 2 off-grid people that we know personally, and that's what they do.
By the way, I'm going to interrupt them. Everybody out there in the audience, put some questions in here. I'm not running out. I could go on, but we've only got about 12, 13 minutes left. But throw some questions in the Q&A box. And I'm sure you guys have got some. You've been very attentive, all of you that are out there. So throw in some questions here in our last 10 minutes or so. So I don't remember from the past, do you guys have relatives, either kids or brothers and sisters or aunts, cousins, whatever, that come and visit that are either really nice and go, oh, what a great place to be, and so on, or just the opposite, where they're going, you guys are crazy. What are you doing living off the grid?
Well,
And I
I
don't
have
mean to
it.
talk about specifics, but I mean, it's just, you hear that. I live very close to being off the grid, and I know that at least 2 of my 4 kids think I'm crazy. So,
Well, I have almost nobody living anymore. I have one nephew, and he thinks anything above 70 degrees is horrible. He lives in Idaho, and so he's not interested at all. And Bob has brothers and sisters, and his sister and her husband came out, but
last year.
yeah, last year they came out, and his dad
My
has
dad's
been
been
here.
out a couple, 3 times.
But too primitive for them. They're more interested in
Not a lot to do out here. It's too quiet.
too quiet, too boring, and like the idea of rattlesnakes and spiders and stuff is like freaks them out a little bit. But they're very sweet about it. I mean, they appreciate what we've done, but they would not want any part of it.
what's the typical date you stop worrying about rattlers? Out here in Colorado, it is usually November 1st. And then we start to worry about them again about May 1st. And how about where you're at?
Every single time that we've stopped worrying about them, we find one. So we just keep our eyes open year round.
This year's been a little warmer than usual,
Yeah.
so we've been look later. But it's kind of like with you, in the wintertime, you don't really see them.
Once in a
You know,
while,
like now,
there'll
we
be
probably won't see any.
a freak, like when you lift things up, like if you're out looking for lumber or something in the pile, you be very careful. And we're pretty careful because that's something that I've never just gotten casual about. They're just too spooky. So we always kind of keep our eyes open.
What other wild animals do you have in the area?
A lot of deer,
Javelina,
javelina.
bobcats.
Yeah.
But our neighbor a couple of years ago had a puma jump into his yard and attack his Labrador. But
Wow.
the dog survived and the puma went away. We never saw it, but that was just right down the road, our neighbor. A lot of big jackrabbits, a lot of tortoises, frogs during the season, these big toady frogs that sound like sheep. They make this funny noise.
Yeah.
And
I remember the first time we heard that. I'm like,
we didn't know what it was. We were,
But it's like they're underground all year until it rains or
and
something.
then they come
and then
up.
they come up out of the ground.
Yeah.
And again, having lived in the desert, high desert, we had an abundance of lizards and
Yeah.
what we called horned toads.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have them.
Basically big toady-like, but they're not like aquatic. They live totally on land. Is your place fenced? You talked about the border patrol coming in. Do they have to come in through a gate, or do they just go across country?
We have our whole 30-acre perimeter fenced, and then we have a fence immediately around our house for our dog so that we can just open the door and she can run out but they come through. We never have had to close our gate before. So now, since this last interruption that we had, we are closing our gate every night, and it is going to we close it and lock it now, which we've never done since we've lived here. But if that's what's going to happen now, I guess we're going to close it and lock it. So then if they're in hot pursuit, and that's supposed to mean if they have a person in sight that they are chasing, they'll run right through your barbed wire fence. They'll just tear it right down. And
Wow.
supposedly they are responsible to come back out and fix it. But we've talked to lots of people that has never happened. They just tear it down and sorry, Charlie, bye-bye now. So I don't know how quick they would be to repair something that they destroy. So
you mentioned recreation earlier and how, you know, your family and such, the city folks and such, other than, well, maybe it is your recreation. You talked about yourself, about Bob, you doing different kinds of things in your shop and such. What other things do you do recreation wise around home instead of, let's say, driving to town to play golf or tennis or whatever?
Well, we walk every morning. We have a pretty solid routine that we take a couple miles walk out in the desert every morning with the dog, and we have a Monday evening happy hour, and people come over, and a lot of times they bring their dogs and the dogs play, and mostly we have a small
There's places around here to go hiking and stuff, like go up into the Chiricahuas or go over to the Whitewater Draw or something like that, or bird watching. Or... Living here has kind of spoiled us for camping, though.
Yeah,
we go camping, it'll be louder than it is here.
Yeah. We have a lot of people running their generators and their big rigs and stuff, and here it's just silent, just absolutely silent. So.
Do you have air traffic that comes over at all, where you see contrails and such from, or not?
Not too much. Sometimes like local, like little planes will be cruising around. And I think they might be practicing with drones out here, because there's a Cochise College that's near to here. And I think they have a drone program or something, or instruction there. So like a lot of times I've seen a plane flying with another like plane-like thing right in front of it. And I don't know if they're testing it out, or I haven't seen that for a while, but every now and then they start.
Well, I live pretty remotely also.
There's a lot of little planes that fly.
Yeah, there's a little airport not far. There's a Douglas Airport, so they do flight instruction and stuff like that. So a lot of little planes. And on one of our sheds that covers we've just got a wood shed that's just like a little awning thing, and we've got a big peace sign painted on it. So a lot of times they'll come and look at that and kind of circle around us and stuff.
I live pretty rurally also, and for the very first time yesterday, it's very quiet. I think I heard a drone, and I live in a canyon, so it would have had to come from over the edge, because I'm the only one where I'm at, and then I couldn't find it visually. I couldn't locate it, and then the sound went away. So I think it might have come over the edge of the canyon and then gone back the other way. But that scares me a little bit if people are starting to fly around on drones and spy on others and such. So
yeah.
Well, Mark, do you have any questions for Bob and Karen? Anything you're thinking of? The audience is being very quiet here. They're not throwing any questions in.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think that in the future, if uncertain times are ahead, living where you guys do is very, very attractive. So,
well, we get a lot of people that are very curious, and the thing that I think makes me the happiest is young people are coming away from the idea of having the big house and all the toys and living a little more simply and not being in debt, because that's one of the goals of a lot of people that we talk to, is they want to get out of debt. They want, if they already have a house, they want to sell it and come down to something smaller. A lot of young people are interested in staying out of debt and doing their own work instead of contracting out, or how a typical house is built and things like that. And that's really heartening. It's nice to see that, because we know so many people that are just burdened with debt that it seems like they'll never get out. So that's a real positive thing that we've seen.
Well, So we're right at the middle of the hour almost. And I think that's a good place to stop here because that's a great message for all of you out there. I think I told you before, we have way more people that will watch this on a replay than watch it live. So what a great message to end on. Let's try to
Yes,
avoid that. So.
And also, we'd like to say that if your viewers would like to contact us and ask us questions, you're free to give out our email if you'd like to do that.
Well, thank you, and we'll put that on the post that we do when we put it on our website. And I hope we did this before, but if we haven't made you members of our group, so you can watch your own video when we post it and others, please make sure to let us know that because we love to make all of our speakers members and for free, so they can be seeing lots of the other things that we do. So.
Oh, thank you.
Well, Mark, I think we probably are. The audience is being shy, and so we'll maybe call it here for the day. I love this. This was fun. I want to come visit you sometime. Like I said, I have my really good friend Bob Christador that's in Tucson, and I get down and see him every once in a while. But I'd like to, ahead of time, let you know, and then come out and visit sometime. So.
That would be
definitely.
great.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Well, you're welcome to come and see us here in Colorado at some point in the future too. So anyway,
Yeah.
Mark, why don't you take us out? And Bob and Karen, have a great rest of your day.
You too.
All
Thank
right.